Good evening. I call to order the January 24th, 2022 meeting of the Middletown City School Board. Mr. Bertram McMullen. Mr. Bertram, would you call the roll, please?
I certainly will. Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Here.
Ms. Novak?
Here.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Here.
And Dr. Urso is excused this evening.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That brings us to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Bertram?
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Ms. Novak?
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Do we have anyone for public participation this evening?
We do not.
Thank you. So that brings us to our presentations. An update from Mr. Stiles on COVID.
Thank you, Ms. Mulligan. Quick update for our Board of Education and our community as well. We had targeted this evening's Board of Education meeting to return back and revisit our COVID protocol with the current temporary face mask requirement. Before I did that, I would like to get into some conversations, some updates for you with the information. The week of January the 10th, the district saw a total of 102 positive COVID-19 cases among students and staff. We also saw a total of 218 quarantines across students and staff as well. This past school week, January the 17th, the district saw a total of 96 positives between students and staff, and a total of 258 quarantines across students and staff. Just wanted to clarify that those data sets that I did share with you, those are all cases of in-home exposure and in-home positive cases. To the best of our knowledge, we do not have this semester any spread or exposure in our school buildings positive resulting in another positive. A lot of those are from in-home exposures. I did want to share also that last week we pushed out a survey to our different stakeholders. We ran a survey internally for our staff. We had a total of 524 staff members complete the survey. We also ran a parallel survey for our community members, which saw 1,200 community members complete the survey. So we had a good representation from the community. We're very excited about the size of our sample set. Real excited about the size of our staff members who participated as well. Got a lot of good feedback. Just wanted to share some quick data with everyone as a result of those surveys. Again, just trying to collect voice, and we did keep it anonymous. We saw a total of 70% of staff members and 57% of our community members who took the survey. They did select that they would like to see the temporary face mask requirement extended. Again, that was 70% of staff members and 57% of our community members who completed the survey, preferring the temporary face mask requirement to be extended. Another data set for you also, the question was asked to our staff if they would be interested in COVID testing on a voluntary basis. The answer to that question was 67% of our staff said that they would be interested in voluntary testing. We asked a similar question to our families, parents, and guardians. We asked if they'd be interested in voluntary student COVID testing during the school day. And again, that percentage of interest was 73% of our community respondents expressed interest in COVID testing voluntarily for students. So again, just data sets for you. We had a community member who I spoke to on the phone several times. Actually, he and I had a good conversation about surveys, just collecting voice. So really appreciate his recommendation. I did want to share, just kind of as a result of analyzing some of the interest in the survey for voluntary testing. The district has been working hard in collaboration with our health officials. Last week we did push out a rapid COVID-19 test kit to every staff member, made it accessible to every staff member in all 10 of our school buildings. I think we saw a total of 56% of those COVID test kits were picked up last week. We are waiting on our shipment of COVID testing for this week from the Ohio Department of Health. Whenever that does get here, we hope to push that right back out to our staff, just to continue on for the testing. And then last thing that I'll say as well is we are working with the Ohio Department of Health, exploring the idea of a voluntary testing option for students. The conversation right now is, can they provide us with the supply of rapid COVID tests with the demand that we may potentially have. So just more of an awareness building piece for our community, to be on the lookout for some communications coming from the district level. Also knowing that that'll include parent permission slips, things of that nature, to make sure that our students are in a good spot. We are meeting tomorrow morning with our health officials to start laying out some logistics just in case we potentially get the green light from the Ohio Department of Health with that supply. With all that being said, my recommendation for the district is right in alignment with what our staff and our survey respondents, which represent our community, are saying. I would like to recommend that our district does keep our temporary face mask requirement in play for the safety of our students and staff, and extend that and revisit that with the Board of Education at our February 14th board meeting. I believe that protocol is helping us a lot, not only keep people safe, but also is giving us the best chance to keep our schools open for face-to-face, in-person learning with that safety protocol. So any questions the board may have with some of the COVID updates that you heard tonight?
So your recommendation is in line with what we decided earlier about until now it was in place, and so we're extending that to the 14th.
Correct, yeah. The recommendation is the district does keep the temporary face mask requirement in play and extend it through into February, and that we revisit the conversation at the February 14th board meeting. At that time, I can provide you a similar update to what we heard tonight with some additional data sources.
So we need to vote on the extension or accept your recommendation?
In the past, we've had discussion, and the board has just expressed some agreement that we were in line with the similar thinking. The board hasn't voted on any of the protocols in the past. We've just had discussion, and your vocal and verbal support of the recommendation is what's been our decision-making protocol.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I like the idea to extend it and then revisit in February again. Can you go over our policy in regards to when we would, like, in what cases we would close schools and what that would look like?
Yeah, so our protocols for closures, really we have tried to evaluate. Let me first by saying it's our goal to try to keep our buildings open for face-to-face instruction as long as it is safe. There are a lot of different factors that go into that decision. We do use some metrics we've used in the past with things like the flu. We pay attention to individual buildings. We look at attendance rates for staff and attendance rates for students. Similar to when we shut down before, we did see a few of our buildings approaching nearly 20% student absence. We had a couple buildings who we felt, just because of the degree of absences we were experiencing amongst the staff, that we just kind of at the point where we couldn't safely keep the building open and keep it supervised and managed. Those are the two biggest things that we look at. We also consult with our health commissioner and keep an eye on our COVID numbers. Whether we have a lot of COVID cases inside of our building, and if those are resulting into spread happening inside the school, that's another safety factor that we take a very close look at. If you recall, right around, I think it was Thanksgiving maybe, or right before winter break, we saw a few classrooms at Central Academy who had some COVID spread inside the classroom, and that became very alarming to us. And in collaboration with the health commissioner, we shut the classrooms down. So those are some of the factors that we would look at. Our hope is that we can make some decisions out of protocol based on individual buildings versus making blanket decisions across the district. But circumstances do change, and unfortunately we found ourselves in that circumstance earlier this year.
So if it would come to pass that it's advisable to close a building or the district, would online learning take place, or it would just be on a holding pattern?
So if we do close for temporary COVID-related reasons, the district is prepared to transition those buildings temporarily to remote learning. Our staff took time last week during the second day that we were off on Tuesday. We spent time, we called them contingency remote learning plans. We started some of those preparations last Tuesday.
Thank you.
it seems like this is the easiest solution to this problem, is just to extend the mask mandate a little bit longer. From trends, it seems that this is not going to have the big arc that the previous infection had. So I think wearing the mask a couple more weeks might be prudent.
Anything else?
Yeah, the other thing is, I've heard about classes in some cases having to double up. And you and I had talked a little bit about some of the complexities of, knowing who's going to be absent. And so when classes are doubled up, is that typically, from people calling off in the morning and not knowing how many staff are going to be in the building and how many are going to be out?
Yeah, we monitor our staff absences all day long, even right before you go to bed and first thing when you wake up. Sometimes folks get sick or family members get sick overnight. So we try our best to accommodate and make sure our staff can take care of themselves and their families. Sometimes that calls us to have different contingency plans at buildings for coverage. That can entail someone at central office trying to sub. I subbed in the World Studies class Friday. We had a blast. We talked about colonies. But it also could mean that some of our staff who go above and beyond and take extra kids in their classroom to try to make sure that they get an education that day as well. Just a lot of creative strategies that our building principals are using to make sure we can keep our schools open. That way kids can keep coming and getting an education.
Okay, our consent agenda has a lot of routine things.
Oh,
but-
sorry, I'm not ready to move on.
Oh,
yet.
sorry.
That's okay. No, I just, I hope that we're not relying on doubling up on classes to keep the schools open, though, because are the kids able to have a quality educational experience, and are we accomplishing our educational goals when we do that? So I just, I don't know at what point we would close the schools due to staffing issues, because I've heard about, high schoolers being together in an auditorium for a period and really not being able to complete lessons or do anything there.
So I'm going to give you a hypothetical example. This is not a real example, so I'm not calling anyone out. But if I check the staff absences at 10 o'clock before I go to bed, and there might be 4 or 5 absences, and then I check them first thing in the morning, the school starts very early, and then all of a sudden there's 18. Out of respect for families and our staff and our kids, sometimes it's difficult because of timing to be able to make a decision about opening or closing school based on absences, because things do happen out of respect overnight.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure we do recognize that. But in the case where we're not able to make a decision, we do try to make sure we keep our school buildings open. Sometimes creative strategies are being put into play. I have students, when I've been in the high school trying to help out in other buildings, they say they want to come to school. They don't want to go home for remote learning. I won't tell you some of the verbiage they use to describe remote learning, but they prefer to be in school. I had several kids in the auditorium say, I'd rather sit here for one bell than sit at home all day long for 3 or 4 days. So I do recognize that some classes, not all, some classes facing some creative strategies so we can keep our schools open and keep our kids in face-to-face school. Some may not be popular, may not be well-liked, but it does allow us to keep our school buildings open for face-to-face instruction. We do our absolute best to make sure we cover every class with an educator. We do our best to make sure we cover every class, make sure that it's supervised, make sure kids are being educated. But some creative strategies do call for some kids to share classrooms and join other classrooms. There have been several times we have had to use the auditorium at the high school to try to make sure we have kids supervised. Hopefully that's a temporary thing that we're feeling during this current surge. More importantly, I think the opposite is just to recognize how the staff's going above and beyond right now. We have teachers who are giving up their plan bells every single day. And that's a heavy burden, and our staff is, and I don't want to give them a lot of respect and credit to what they're doing to make sure we keep our schools open right now.
No, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we spoke about some of those complexities, that it's not as simple as, at 10 o'clock the night before, we know what it's going to look like the next day, and that a lot can change overnight, and that we are prioritizing keeping kids in school. And also extreme appreciation for our staff and all that they're doing, because I know that it's not easy for them right now.
Yes, then, well, then, the consent agenda is mostly routine things, but there are a couple of things that we might want to just speak briefly about. One of the items on here is,
Kathy, if we could get a motion in a second.
oh, we haven't done that?
No.
Okay, we're ready to approve the agenda then, is that what we're?
No, we just need the motion in the second, and then you can open it up for discussion.
Okay, so we need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Yes.
I
So
wish
moved.
Chris were here. He finesses these things so nicely. Miss you, Chris.
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Now
All
we're
in
open-
favor?
Now we're open
Well,
for
discussion.
All discussion, yes.
Yes, I have a question about the math audit. If we could go through some of the things that already have been looked at by the people doing the math audit, and then some of the things that are still left to do.
Yes, the majority of what you're seeing here in the contract is an extension of days. As we've conducted our math audit, we've been focusing a lot on individual buildings. We've been doing some instructional rounds at each building, traveling to different classrooms, evaluating mathematical practices and strategies that are being used in the classroom and how they're being taught. We spent a lot of time with our consultant, walking with our instructional leaders at the building and district level, talking about what they're seeing and how math is being taught. Our consultants also actually done some professional development with us as well. And we're doing some consulting with them around the resources that we may potentially be doing as far as the adoption is concerned. So it's been pretty in-depth. They have done some studies, and they've shared some data at our principals meeting a couple months ago based on their walkthrough observations and the instructional rounds. We're just finding that we need more time to really stay in-depth, especially in a very one-on-one situation with our instructional leaders at the building, making sure that we really dig into the math strategies that are being taught. So a unique approach, yes. We are trying to leverage our title funds for professional development as best we possibly can to really cover this from a financial standpoint. But definitely the thoroughness of this experience, I think, is really going to set us up for the transition next year once the adoptions are complete and really start getting into using the new resources.
Okay.
Mr. Bertram, would you like to go over anything from the financial report and announce our donations?
Yeah, we've got two donations, two generous donations that we're very pleased to accept. First one for $574 to support our ESL program implementation for Passport to Tomorrow initiative. That is from James and Lindsay Pollins. Thank you very much. Second donation that we received is for $1,000 going to the Hope Squad. Hope Squad is a goal to prevent suicide prevention and awareness for our students. Very nice thing to donate to, and this is from Ronald and Nicole Condre. Thank you, Ronald and Nicole.
Wonderful, thank you.
Any other requests for detail? Okay.
Ready for the vote?
Yes, we need to vote on
The consent.
the contents of the consent agenda.
Ms. Novak,
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Shiver.
Yes.
And I think we're finished with that. Bringing us to committee reports.
Personnel agenda.
Yeah, the person,
Oh, that's not in the consent?
no.
Personnel is in the consent, human resources, job description,
Oh.
read-only is not. That's the next one.
Oh, we just need the job description was not in.
No, and then.
Okay, well, the
curriculum.
job description is for a parent/caregiver resource center liaison, a long title for someone who's going to make sure that parents are aware of resources available to them. That doesn't happen automatically, and our liaisons work with parents to let them know exactly that, what other help is available to them. And we need to make it official with the job description And that is part of that is under Human Resources, which I thought was in consent, but I guess it isn't. No, it's not in consent, I
No.
agree. So we need a motion to, this is read only, we don't need to do
Yep,
anything.
read only for the first time. We'll bring it back next meeting for approval.
Okay.
Is this, how many positions would this be, just one?
Sorry,
Okay.
I'll make the motion and then we can have discussion.
Read only.
Oh, it's read on, okay, so we don't have to do anything.
So this is an hourly title position. They do a lot of work with our PAC advisors, PAC events, any parent-related events. They try to partner with some resources some resources they provide and make accessible to our parents across the district. Also, if any families are experiencing language barriers, they try the best to collaborate with them to get them access to whatever they need inside the school system. Again, just some very minor revisions to the job description as it previously had been established for the prior person who had this, just more of updates than anything. Very small tweaks.
Okay, and I see a note here that we also need to look at the contract renewal for the Apex Learning for kids, to help get kids caught up. It calls for a action on this. So do you want to say a little bit more about that since Deb isn't here?
Yeah. We'll need the motion in the second, then we'll
Okay.
open it up for the discussion.
All right then, is there a motion to accept the report, the request here?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? No, we don't do that, we have to call the roll. Randy does that. Except we have to have discussion.
I could share a little bit about the Apex contract
Yes,
if the
please.
board would be interested. The Apex platform is what the district has been using for what previously was Mid-State. It's an online platform that we now are using for the Middie virtual program. As you know, the Middie virtual program is our online learning environment where our middle school and high school students have had choice in preparation for this upcoming school year, which was approved in the board's program of studies. This is just the contract with the Apex software provider to get us in place with the licenses for next year. By going with the approval of the renewal at this particular moment, they have agreed, since it's in advance, to give us a discount of approximately $15,000 off the total cost.
And this gives us unlimited use, correct?
Correct. All middle school and high school virtual students would have access to the courses in the platform.
And how many do we have on virtual this year? Do you know? I mean, I know you gave us numbers before, but I can't remember.
At the middle school, we have roughly 165 students. The high school, I think we have just about 200, maybe a little bit more.
And Mid-State, I mean, the online program was something that we had prior to COVID that we were implementing that was sort of an innovative thing for school districts to do, and I think helped prepare us for transitioning in COVID as well, where we had a lot more enrollment there for people who just weren't ready to come back to school. And it looks like this approval's through May 2025.
Multi-year.
So this will be an ongoing program. Now, I know Ms. Schreiber asked about the cost, or?
No, numbers.
Okay.
The numbers.
Okay. Well, are we also paying for licenses for each student that enrolls, or is it just a one-time payment and then it's good for however many students enroll?
It's part of the contract that we're approving tonight for Apex, or the student licenses. If you recall, previously you had a separate contract in the middle of the pandemic. Well, we're still in the pandemic. The start of the pandemic, changed my vocabulary. We had more students interested in transitioning to virtual when we had that semester break. So we needed to come back to the board at that time to purchase more licenses.
Okay.
But based on the information we have, this contract would provide a license for our virtual students starting next year.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Thank you.
So if there's no more discussion?
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Ms. Novak?
Yes.
And finally, last thing, the committee reports. Do I call these or do you?
District committee reports, yes.
Well, we'll start at the end down there then.
Nothing, Todd?
No committee report to report, no. Nothing tonight.
The Community Center Committee has attempted to meet twice, but we haven't had a quorum for both of the meetings. It's to approve the RFP for the job description, basically, for a project manager. So we are still working toward that and trying to have a quorum for our meeting so that we can get that process moving. Butler Tech also met for their organization meeting. The Butler Tech Board President is no longer on the board now. He is a Fairfield Township trustee. So Brett Guido is the new president of the Butler Tech Board of Trustees. And I'll be serving on the Strategic Planning Committee and the Legislative Committee. And that's all I have to report.
Yes, and Mrs. Mulligan and I, we're awaiting our next job on the policy committee, whenever the next step is. I know you said that the contract has been okayed, and we are working with Ohio School Board Association to go over our entire school policy list and make recommendations for change. Also, Mrs. Mulligan and I are on the district leadership team committee, and that had to be canceled because of COVID issues. But we are going to go over some data next week with Mr. Stiles. So that would be our committee reports.
And as for me, I don't really have anything to report. Thank you for your indulgence in my awkwardness of doing this. And with that, our superintendent may have a word. Or do I defer to our treasurer first?
For board reports, I don't have anything this evening.
I'll just share a few pieces for our board reports. Again, I just want to say thank you to the 524 staff members and the 1,200 community members who participated in the survey. Information is very valuable. But then also just would like to just take a moment, if you don't mind, to talk about board appreciation this month in January. Is that appropriate? Mr. Bertram and I want to just present the board with certificates from the Ohio School Board Association. As you know, January is Board Appreciation Month, and he and I, on behalf of the staff and the community, just wanted to show our appreciation for all that you do to serve the district and the community. I'm not sure if you'd like a handshake and a photo op moment, but he and I have some nice certificates of appreciation we'd like to present you today.
Well, balloons and champagne would be nice. That is nice.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you.
Is there cake somewhere?
Champagne and cake next year.
No.
So that concludes the business of the evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion?
All in favor?
You're getting good at this.
All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
You're just getting rolling.